So Mark, you've had a 12-year absence from the stage.
Yes.
Why return now, and why return in this play?
I was always looking for something to do. I never wanted to be away from the stage for so long. I remember when I was younger, I used to talk to older actors and say, how come you haven't done a play in so long? And they said, the time just passes you by, you kind of don't really realise it. And exactly the same happened to me. I mean, I was making movies, really, and you become unavailable when you do a play because they require months of rehearsal and performance, obviously. And I couldn't find the right thing. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And it was really hard to find something after the last plays I did, which were Uncle Vanya and 12th Night at the Donmar with Sam Mendes. They were his leaving plays. One company doing both plays. And it was very successful and it was great fun. We took it to Brooklyn. And I think it just became very tricky to know what to do after then. So I'd looked at various plays and various things over the years, but nothing really struck me. And then I read this play, and I'd never seen it. And even though I'd done Death of a Salesman at the National in the 90s, I'd never even read it. I knew of it, and I just sat down, read it, and just remembered what an incredible kind of craftsman Miller is, and how kind of muscular the play is, and thought, yeah, you know, that would be an amazing part in an amazing play. And I think the Young Vic is a theatre that's really interesting at the moment. So, as a very long-winded answer to your question, all the stars aligned at the right time to make this the play, this the place.
And a lot of people have mentioned the perhaps autobiographical elements of Miller's writing in Eddie's obsession with these. Have you done a lot of reading into Miller and his life in order to provide a bit more background on the play, or do you feel that's a side issue?
It's of interest, but it's not anything that I think you particularly need to mind because it's all there in the play. Around the time that he wrote it in the 50s, he was seeing Marilyn Monroe, so you can draw, and he was married, so you could draw parallels there with an older man's obsession with a younger girl. And of course it was the time of the McCarthy hearings, so you can draw parallels there with the idea of never spilling the beans within the community or to the government about illegal immigrants that you might be harbouring. The idea of keeping your counsel, you know, was very prevalent at the time. But other than that really, I'm not sure. I think somebody once said to me that of all the characters in his plays, Eddie is the closest to him. But I met him when I was doing Death of a Salesman. We had the good fortune to go over to Salzburg where he was chairing a conference about theatre as a social force or something like that. And there were people from all over the world, and he was chairing it, and we got to go and sit in a room with him and rehearse Death of a Salesman. I mean, it was amazing. Alan Armstrong and I went over with David Thacker, the director, and whenever Arthur then had a moment, we would adjourn to a room smaller than this and just sit around and read the play. It's an incredible privilege, I think. Being in his company was really fascinating because he's a very solid guy. Even then, I don't know how old he was, but in his 80s probably, he was, you know, very, very kind of present. And yeah, it was. Can I see Eddie in him? Not really. He's far too sharp and bright and all of that. Anyway, he said that he'd been doing research into dockers and their families, and that's what the original one-act play came out of. So it's not really him. It's a character he's built up as a result of the research that he's done.
Let's talk a little bit about the director, because he's not. I mean, he's known but not very well known in this country, certainly. And could you just give us an insight into his approach, into his process? How's it been in the rehearsal?
Yeah, Ivo van Hove, first thing he said to me was, you know, I'm not avant-garde. Whatever that means, I don't know. particularly why he was called avant-garde, neither does he. But what he does have is this desire to strip everything bare, to strip everything back to its basics, to get to the heart and the issues of a play, especially plays that have become cloaked over the years in a way of being done. I mean, whenever View from the Bridge is done, generally, it's set in the 50s, there's the Brooklyn Vowels, there's a whole dining scene in the first act, people bringing on cutlery and making a whole meal, and 50% of your attention is taken by watching the actors do that. And it's interesting, when everything is stripped away, you have nothing else to look at, all you can do is listen to it. And that is his intention, so consequently what he's done is taken everything away from us. There's a beautiful set, but there's no furniture. It's a very modern set, almost like an animal's cage. There are no bars, but it's like an enclosure, is the best way to describe it. And in that enclosure, we perform. And yeah, no furniture, no props, just the words. It's very interesting.
And Nicola Walker, who plays your wife, was an actress who seems to constantly reinvent herself, really, and has certainly impressed on stage recently in Curiousness and Long in the Night. I mean, how's your relationship developed, and how key is that relationship to the play?
Well, we get on very well, which is nice. And we've kind of clung to each other during this process because it's a new one on me. I mean, I can't believe, even though I have been away from the stage for 12 years, that people have been doing this very often. But it's been liberating, and she's felt the same. I love doing scenes with her because she's just brilliant. She can turn on a sixpence, one minute she can play it one way, Eva will turn on and say, try it the other way, and she'll literally just switch and do it another way completely, totally comfortably. She's great to have on stage because it's, you're pretty exposed out there with no furniture, props, and there's actually one entrance, the back of the stage, that's it. And you're surrounded on all sides by the audience. It's almost like you're in a bear pit almost. So she's a great ally to have in that arena.
Do you think this could prompt a new chapter of stage work in your career? And if so, are there, I mean, I can only imagine you must have a few roles in mind that you would have an eye on, not just classical, but obviously there's plenty more of the Miller canon as well. Mm-hmm. To what extent has this sort of reawakened your passion for the stage?
To be honest with you, it was always intended as dipping my toe back in the water to see how it was. 12 years is a long time to be away, and a 38-year-old brain deals with it very differently from a 50-year-old brain. I love the experience that I'm able to bring to it now. I feel like I've learned a lot that I can now bring to a performance on stage. But I've yet to find out. I want to see how it progresses. I've absolutely loved rehearsals, I have to say, and that I knew would always be my favourite thing, getting back into a room with people, dissecting a text, creating characters, balancing performances with each other, dealing with concepts, should a director have one, which he most certainly has, and making all of that work has been a joy. We're now in the position of we're just about to open in front of an audience. Now, I'm so deep, I have no idea what the play is like. Obviously, I've never seen it, I can't see it from the outside. I know that everything we've done has come from a logical place, but I've yet to see whether people respond to it or not. Now, that's not going to decide whether or not I do any more plays, because as I say, I love the rehearsal process. Performance, I'm going to find out how it feels to do a run of 10 weeks now of this play. And I'm on stage for pretty much 80 of 90 pages, and there's nothing to cling on to, other than the really rather excellent writing of Arthur Miller. There are a couple of roles that I have in mind, but I'm just enjoying this for the moment, and I want to see how it goes.